The United States has always been considered the land of immigrants and cultural diversity, having been nicknamed the melting pot. This continues to be true today as yearly our nation and schools become more racially and linguistically different, according to Donna Ford, author of Why Education Must Be Multicultural, addressing a few misperceptions with counter-arguments. Nowhere is the diversity of our nation more evidenced than in the American classrooms. According to Ford, almost half of students in public schools are non-white. The most prevalent diverse ethnic groups include Black, Hispanic, Asian, and Native American students. With all of this diversity, one must ask, how are schools providing for students who come from different cultural backgrounds? In her article, Ford seeks to answer this question. She says, first, educators must ensure that students have deep and authentic educational experiences about the lives of others who do not share their cultural and racial background and experiences. Second, educators must ensure that culturally different students learn about themselves in rigorous and relevant ways. The best way to accomplish these goals is to plan for a classroom environment and lesson plans that include multiculturalism and equity pedagogy. So what is multicultural education? It is an education that incorporates many different cultures into the curriculum. Ford says that the goals of multicultural education are an expanded knowledge of various cultural and racial groups, educational equity, empowerment of students, caregivers, and communities, the promotion of cultural pluralism, and cultural harmony. Multicultural education is not designed to rewrite history, but rather to correct distortions and inaccuracies. This means that multicultural education is used to introduce students to many cultures, provide an equal education for all, make every student feel welcome, and promote racial equality and harmony in the community. Besides doing all of that, it increases students' capacity for intellectual open-mindedness and global perspective about issues. Another component of multiculturalism is equity pedagogy. According to James and Cherry Banks, equity pedagogy includes teaching strategies in classroom environments that help diverse students attain the knowledge, skills, and attitudes needed to function effectively within a democratic society. It also helps students acquire basic skills and use those skills to become agents for social change. Sulaco, Etsy, and Adu say that equity pedagogy exists when teachers modify their teaching strategies in ways that will facilitate the academic achievement of students from diverse racial and cultural groups. In an attempt to meet the demands of multicultural learners, instructional strategies must be centered on multicultural education concepts, taking into account the historical, cultural, and social-economic characteristics of a community. The next question to be answered is, what does a social studies curriculum look like if it is based on the principle of multiculturalism and equity pedagogy? For starters, Sulaco, Etsy, and Adu say that social studies is primarily concerned with the study of people, their activities and relationships as they interact with their physical and socio-cultural environment. Because of that, many different issues that are prevalent in the surrounding community need to be discussed. They say that some of these issues include equity and justice, religion, ethnicity, cooperation and conflict, peace, racism, culture and identity, civic rights and responsibility, leadership, followership, and citizenship. Social studies teaches students how to live and behave in a democratic society, so it is important that teachers model an acceptance of diversity and promote multiculturalism. Sulaco, Etsy, and Adu also emphasize that in virtually every school, one is likely to find students who are not only from different ethnic groups, but from a variety of racial composition, and this is increasing every day. Specifically, prejudice, discrimination, and lack of equal opportunity to learn are the prevailing situations in the society. With this being an issue, they believe that teaching a technique which allows for cooperative learning is preferred for harmonious coexistence in the classroom. Incorporating multiculturalism and an equity pedagogy into the social studies curriculum takes significant effort from teachers. Sulaco, Etsy, and Adu say it is therefore imperative for teachers to acquire as much knowledge as possible about the world and its culture. They further emphasize that in order to prepare students to be productive citizens in a global economy, teachers must have the mentality and tools to instill global perspectives in students. So what do they recommend teachers incorporate into their classrooms? They say that focus should be shifted to jigsaw technique, which is one of the cooperative learning methods. By its very nature, students are trained to become active learners because new perspectives are shared within groups as a result of the existing variety of background knowledge. They further say that the conventional method is inappropriate and ineffective for achieving the high objectives of social studies. They believe that cooperative learning is effective because it both places students in heterogeneous groups usually comprised of 4 or 5 students, and they work together on a common goal. As students collaborate and cooperate with one another, they develop cross-cultural understanding and develop stronger interpersonal friendships than they would by working alone. Salako, Etsy, and Adu also say that technology should be integrated into the multicultural social studies classroom in order for it to be effective. They say in this era of information technology, students can easily access many kinds of information in which they are interested. So why should teachers include equity pedagogy? Salako, Etsy, and Adu say that cooperative learning is an instructional strategy that simultaneously addresses academic and social skill learning by students, and that it is a well-researched instructional strategy and has been reported to be highly successful in the classroom. Multicultural education and equity pedagogy also leads to success for students in the future. In their article, A Rationale for Cultural Awareness in the Science Classroom, Genevieve Bardwell and Eric Kincaid say when teachers model inclusiveness and multicultural awareness in their approach to students, they are modeling open-mindedness, which entices innovation. They claim that if teachers can integrate culturally relevant content with inquiry and problem-based teaching strategies to remanage how students learn, then student participation will increase and excitement will grow as students incorporate their own questions into open-ended laboratory experiments or science research projects. Although there have been many advances made in the way of equal rights for all, there are still many racial barriers within the school system and the classroom, and Banks say equity pedagogy can only be achieved if the racial barriers within the classroom, school, and district are broken down. Part of the issue lies in what Banks refer to as the hidden curriculum, which includes anything that is not explicitly taught. What teachers do not realize is that racism and inequality can be implicitly stated in how the classroom is arranged and how students are grouped. In order for a teacher to successfully implement multiculturalism and equity pedagogy into his/her classroom, they must first break down any racial barriers within his/herself, the classroom, and the hidden curriculum. One of the best ways to incorporate multiculturalism is through literature. 2 examples of multicultural literature are Pink and Say by Patricia Polacco and My Name is Yoon by Helen Rakovitz. The review for Pink and Say on Goodreads.com describes it saying, "This story about how a young black soldier rescues a white soldier opens young readers' eyes to the injustices of slavery and the senselessness of war." Pink and Say can be used to discuss slavery and injustices that existed in the United States. This could then lead to a discussion about how slavery and the injustices in this country are affecting the students today. Another example is My Name is Yoon by Helen Rakovitz. Goodreads.com describes it saying Yoon's name means shining wisdom, and when she writes it in Korean, it looks happy, like dancing figures. But her father tells her that she must learn to write it in English. In English, all the lines and circles stand alone, which is just how Yoon feels in the United States. My Name is Yoon is about accepting other cultures and helping everyone feel welcome in the classroom. Besides including literature, it is important that teachers use lessons that incorporate multicultural themes. One lesson that appropriately incorporates multiculturalism is a lesson on immigration into the United States. It perfectly describes the diversity of the United States and how that diversity should be celebrated. It also allows for multiple cultures to be introduced and studied. Another excellent example is a lesson based on the Underground Railroad and slavery in the United States. Like immigration, it explains the diversity in our nation and allows students to explore the African culture and how slavery introduced a different culture that merged both African and American cultures. Resources for both of these lessons are available at scholastic.com. So can multicultural education and culturally relevant pedagogy be used to increase student interest in social studies? Based on the research, the answer is yes. If students are given the opportunity to learn about not only their personal culture, but also the cultures found in their classroom, community, country, and world, students will become more engaged and invested in the lesson.